Alright, today we're going to be going through the bubble sorting algorithm. We went through it in the last video, but we haven't really clarified what it does before, so I thought I'm going to go through this again for those of you who didn't understand from the previous video or if it went too fast for you. And to start with, I want to just show you an example I found on Wikipedia. So basically, the bubble sorting algorithm sorts an array. So it sorts it from an ascending order, that means from the smallest element to the largest element. So let's assume that the array we given is 5, 1, 4, 2, and 8, and we want to sort this from an ascending order. Then the first thing, once we pass it through the bubble iteration, is that the first two elements are compared. So 1 and 5. If 5, or 5 and 1, if 5 is greater than 1, then they're going to swap places, because we want to have the largest element on the right side and the smallest element on the left side. So in this case, this will swap places, so we will have 1, 5. Then 5 will be compared to 4, which you see over here. Obviously 5 is larger than 4, so they will swap places as well. Now 5 is compared to 2, and same as here, 5 is larger than 2, so they also swap places. Now we have reached 1, 4, 2, 5, 8. 5 is compared to 8, 5 is less than 8, so this part is now sorted. Now we will go through the second pass one more time. 1 is compared to 4. Is 1 less than 4? Yes. Now this will be kept. Second one is 4 is compared to 2. 4 is larger than 2, so they will swap places. 4 is compared to 5. 5 is less than 5. This stays. 5 is compared to 8, which is already sorted, so this will also stay. Now it will pass through one last time and check. 1 is compared to 2. That's correct. Which is nothing happens there. 2 is compared to 4. Nothing happens here. 4 is less than 5, which is correct. 5 is less than 8, which is correct. And this is when it knows that this list is sorted and it will return the list for you. If we have any passes, it will do them and then it will check it again. It will always check the list one last time when it's done. So going back to our code blocks, now we want to put this in code. First thing we can do is we can call or define a void function that we can call sort, which consists of an array. This is what we're gonna use in the bubble sort. So what I'm gonna do in the int main right now is just gonna be what we're gonna test the bubble sorting method on. So int my array, let's just call it my array, which consists of, let's do 10 elements. We can do 9, 7, 3, 5, 3, 2, 3, 7, 3, 5, 3. Okay. And then we can have we have another variable which is size. This is the size of the array above. Obviously we know that we put 10 elements in here, so size is going to be set to 10 as well. Now let's assume that the function is done, because obviously we're going to have to call the function over here. And let's assume that we have defined this. That means that we can call it again in our int main. So sort my array size, and then we can just use a for loop to sort the elements after they have been, or while they're being passed through the function. And this is basically where we're going to print them out. So all this we're just preparing to use the function, and here we can just print off %d and of course my array on the spot I. So this means it will print out this loop while it's being sorted using this function. So the reason we're doing it in a loop is because, as I showed you earlier, they're gonna have to swap places and everything, and when they're being printed out, they're not gonna be printed out on the same spots. So the function will print them out on different places. Now, to start with the function itself, we're gonna need a help variable or a temporary variable where things will be stored. We can call it int temp for now. It's an integer that will store the integers of the function. Now, first of all, we're going to have a for loop, and the for loop is int I equals to 0, where I is less than size. So I is less than 10, I plus plus. What this for loop will do is it will control the number of passes that are done in the bubble iteration. Then we have another for loop, but this time this consists of j. J is less than size minus 1. This is the condition of j, j plus plus. What this for loop will do is that it will do the passes and swap the elements. The elements will be swapped in this loop, because in this loop we're going to use an if statement, and the if statement will say that array j is equals to array j plus 1. Not equals to, I'm sorry, is larger than, if this is true, if array j is larger than array j plus 1, then we want to do something. So the first thing we want to do is we want to store the value of array j inside of temp, and then now we want to swap their places. So this is why we're doing this. We're storing the value of, let's say, 7 inside of 9, because we want to swap their places. And then now we do array j equals array j plus 1. So what this does is that 7 is stored somewhere, and then 9 is replaced with the second element in the array. So 9 is placed here, and in the end, you guessed it, that somewhere where we stored our 7, which in this case is our temp, is going to be set to array j plus 1 equals temp. So what we do in this if is that we stored 9. Well, if j is larger than j plus 1, so if 9 is larger than 7, then take array j, which is 9, store it in a temporary variable, then set array j equals to 7. So we put the 7 instead of the 9, and then array j plus 1, which is the 7's place, is replaced with temp, which is where we earlier set our 9. So the 7 will be here, and the 9 will be there. And just to try this code, doesn't seem like it's working. Okay, I paused the video just to see what the mistake was, because it seemed pretty odd. I just messed up the I over here. It's supposed to be j. I wrote I, and obviously an I in a j loop wouldn't work. But to keep it like this was the only problem, and this should sort this array over here. So if we run the program, we see that the array is sorted from the smallest to the largest element. And I also wrote a code to make it easier for you guys to understand if you're still confused about what's going on. And as you see, the beginning of the int main is pretty simple. We have initiated an array. We have specified that the array contains 10 elements. We call the sort function that we have defined at the bottom here, and then we use the loop to loop through the elements actually that are being called in the sort function. And then here we print each element while I is less than size is true, while this condition is true. But this is not really the part where actually the hard part. The hard part is this, I'm guessing. And we use this function to temporarily store the value when we're swapping. Basically, this line is used because we have to store the value of as I told you, 7 or 9 somewhere, otherwise C will forget it. The second for loop, or the first for loop actually, the I for loop, this starts a for loop that will basically iterate the size number of times, and the variable I is initialized to 0, and it will be incremented by 1 each time the loop iterates. And of course the loop will continue until I is no longer less than size. This loop will be used to control the number of passes through the array. The second for loop over here, basically this starts a nested for loop that will iterate size minus 1 number of times. The variable j is initialized to 0 and will be incremented by 1 each time the loop iterates. The loop will continue until j is no longer less than the condition size minus 1, and this loop will be used to perform the actual passes through the array and swap the elements if needed, which is this if condition over here. And what this if condition says is basically if array of j, if somewhere in the array j is larger than the next index of the array, then the condition will be applied. And the condition itself says that the first line, temp equals array of j, this line stores the value of the element at index j in the array in the temp variable. And then you have this one. This line assigns the value of the element at index j plus 1 in the array to the element at index j. So that means that this value will be stored in here. And the last code of line says that temp, which is the value that we stored from the beginning, is stored in j plus 1. So for those of you who haven't really understood what I said in the beginning, I hope this one clarified the question marks. And this is the bubble sorting algorithm.